I guess we are live. Oh, let me check. We are live. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this very interesting session of Apollo 11. So, wait, let me share this. So, yes. So, welcome everyone to this very interesting session. And does anyone knows that what is this session about? If you can tell us in the chat box. I mean, there is already the title in the video, but still, because this is a very special celebration, especially because around 57 years ago, we achieved, from we I mean humanity, the complete humanity, we achieved something that by all standards was considered impossible. Yes, Apollo 11. So yes, we achieved something that was very difficult, very impossible by every standard, but we still did it. We went to the moon and back, right? So today we are here to celebrate that special occasion, which happened around 57 years ago. So let me share the screen. And yeah, so let me introduce you to our very special session of today, which will be about the very famous Apollo 11, the journey that changed the space exploration forever. And because this was the very first mission that made humans not interplanetary exactly, but humans landed on another celestial body that was not Earth. We landed on the moon. We celebrate this day as the International Moon Day. So does anyone knows when exactly is the International Moon Day celebrated? So you can tell me in the chat box that what is the exact date of celebration of the International Moon Day. Okay. But yes, this whole, all the missions that were there on the moon. But the main question arises here is that why exactly do we go to the moon? Right? Why? Why to go to the moon? Yes, I'm getting some answers. 20th July, 16th July. Yes. Anyone else? So the question is, why go to the moon? What exactly is there that we wanted to achieve? There are many reasons for this. One of them is, some of the main reasons are obviously for the space exploration and to have fun. But the main reason is that moon acts as the geological time capsule, because there is no air on the moon, because moon doesn't have any tectonic movements. Whatever was there millions of years ago on the moon, it is still there, and it will be even after millions of years from now. So this acts as a time capsule, so from which we can study about the past of the formation of the planets, right? There, the proximity of the moon is so, it is the closest object to Earth, the closest celestial object, which makes it great to test the space technologies. And it is to understand how space radiation can bombard and affect the astronauts, because that is an important thing to know before we go to the moon, to space on the moon or any other planet. So moon basically acts as a testing ground for space agencies so that we can test our space technologies, we can test effect of space on humans, right? So that the moon acts as the perfect base for all these things. Let me tell you some of the main features of the moon. There are mainly four main features that moon has. First is called as the terrae. Anyone knows what terraces are? Terraces are those highland regions, like the mountains on the moon, right? So those are called as the terrae. Second, a very important feature, which is called as Maria or mares. These are the dark, smooth lowlands. So you see all these dark regions on the moon. These are the places where mostly all the lunar landings have been done. And these lowland smooth regions are called as the mare or Maria. Then the third feature of the moon is lunar regolith. Regolith is basically the soil of the moon, which covers the complete surface. And the fourth is the craters. Craters, everyone would know, are created because of the asteroid impacts that moon has been witnessing since its birth. Right? So, an asteroid comes and hit on the moon that creates a crater on the moon, and moon is filled with it. Right? So all of these features makes moon a very good place for space exploration. But why did humans wanted to go to space? Right? That's a very big and good question. Why exactly did we wanted to do that? The reasons are two main reasons, obviously. First is obviously the curiosity and exploration. Humans have always been curious about the space, right? As we all are till now. But another main reason that why we went to the moon was not just curiosity, but it was a race between two major countries, which was the USA and the USSR, now called as the Russia. And that race is called as the space race. They were into a like a competition that who will send humans to the space first, right? And because of this race, we got all of these very famous missions and very successful missions. USA did its part, and which are called as the Luna missions. So these Soviet missions, or the USSR missions, sorry, are called as the Luna missions, which included most all these very successful missions, like the Luna One, which was the first human-made object or the first artificial object that reached the vicinity of the moon. Then we had Lunar 2, which was the first artificial object or the first human-made object that reached the surface of the moon. Then it was Luna 9, which achieved the very first smooth landing on the surface of the moon. Then we had Luna 10, which became the first object to orbit the moon. So obviously, USSR also had a huge, set of successful missions, and they became the first people to do all of these things. The first country or the first missions to reach the surface of the moon, to do a soft landing on the moon, the first to orbit the moon. But then came the USA, or America, and they also sent few missions which were called as the Apollo mission. So Apollo 8, which was launched in 1968, became the first mission that carried humans to the orbit of the moon, and they came back safely. And which made Apollo 8 the very first mission in which crewed mission in which humans went to the moon and back. Then Apollo 11 mission, which was in 1969, which was the first mission that made humans land on the surface of the moon. And then Apollo 17 mission, which was the last human mission to the moon. And it was in 1972. So, total of 9 missions and 24 astronauts have gone to the moon yet, and landed safely or orbited the moon. And today we are here to talk about the most famous Apollo 11 mission, which made humans walk on the surface of the moon. So let's see a glimpse of that mission. Okay, so Apollo 11 mission, which had 3 very brave and famous astronauts, which were Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin. Let's see a glimpse of that mission.
Okay, retro, go. Fido, go. Guide, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. Jinsei, go. Econ, go. Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go for undocking.
Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins arrived at the moon on Saturday, July 19th.
So yes, everything was ready to go, and they were launched into space to the moon. Right. So let's see some of the things that were there of this mission. So the Apollo 11 mission was launched by a Saturn V rocket from the Kennedy Space Center on July 16th, 1969. And among in the mission, there were three astronauts, which were Commander Neil Armstrong, and in the lunar module, it was pilot Buzz Aldrin, and both of them landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969. And they spent over 21 hours and 36 minutes on the lunar surface at the Tranquility base. Okay, so let's see some of the timeline of the events that we had in the Apollo 11 mission. Let's see from where it started till the very end. First, it started with a 363-foot, very huge rocket, Saturn V rocket, carrying the Apollo 11 mission from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And it started on July 16th, 1969. All the cameras were tracking the rocket as it went up, up, and up to the above atmosphere. Then it launched. Then the Apollo astronauts went separated from the rocket. All the members from the Kennedy Space Center, government, industry, all of them were continuously monitoring the complete mission. And this photo was taken just 1 hour into the flight by Neil Armstrong, and this person is Buzz Aldrin. This was the view of the Earth very shortly after the Apollo 11 reached the orbit. And this was the photo that was taken. This is the photo of the complete Earth that was taken by the astronauts as it was going towards our moon. Right? And this is what the the module looked like when it separated from the main mission, in which Michael Collins stayed in the orbit, and Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong went towards the surface of the moon. So, this undocked of both of the pieces undocked, and the lunar module now carrying Armstrong and Aldrin towards the surface of the moon. Still, everyone was very curiously looking at, monitoring the complete mission, because they were about to become the first humans to land on the surface, to step foot on the surface of the moon. Then, as time passed, this was the last photo of the command module that was taken by Buzz Aldrin. And you can see that this the command module is inside the circle. It is almost indistinguishable from the surface. And finally, the Eagle landed.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
That was one small step for a man and one giant leap for complete mankind. So Neil Armstrong became the first human to step foot on the surface of the moon. And soon after, Buzz Aldrin also came out from the command module and became the second human to step foot on the surface of the moon. So, the Buzz Aldrin jumps down to the top rung of the ladder to the lunar module, photographed by Neil Armstrong, who had minutes before stepped out of the surface. And this was the famous photo, that is the footprint of Buzz Aldrin on the lunar surface. And this was not just a footprint to, just to take a photo of it. This was also to do the experiments on the soil itself. Right? So Buzz Aldrin made this footprint, captured a photo, and this footprint will remain on the moon for millions of years because, as we discussed, there is no air on the moon, there is no atmosphere, there is no tectonic movement. So this footprint will always remain there. Then obviously they were not there just to take photographs and have fun. They were there to do many missions, right? They were there to do many experiments. So one of the things that Buzz Aldrin did was to erect the flag of the US of America. So if you look closely, you can see Aldrin's face also through the visor, right? So this was a flag that was erected on the surface of the moon, and one of the only clear photos of Neil Armstrong also on the lunar surface, which was taken by Buzz Aldrin. So here you can see that they are taking out all the equipments to start their experimentations on the moon. The flag is already hosted, and now other equipments and machines are they are taking out. One of the another famous thing that they deployed on the moon, or they you know sent on the moon, was a plaque that said that here men from planet Earth first set foot upon the moon on July 1969. We came in peace for all mankind. So because this was another celestial body, right? It was not Earth. So they actually left a plague on the surface of the moon, and which said, we came in peace for all mankind. Then they started with all the experimentations that they had to do while on the surface of the moon, and this was a photo of the Earth that was taken from the moon. So view of the Earth in the black sky above the lunar module. So here you can see this is the lunar module in which Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong stepped foot out on the surface of the moon. They landed on this module, and this is how the Earth looked like from the surface. Then they started setting up all their equipments. So Aldrin deployed the solar panels. So from here you can see that there are many things, because this is an image that will tell you a lot about what the mission was about. So first, this was the lunar module that in which Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the surface. Then this is the flag that they hoisted. These are the solar panels and equipments that were there to test the seismo. This was a seismometer that tested the moonquakes, right? To test the surface, the interior of the moon. Then this is actually a reflector. This reflector was used to measure the distance between the Earth and the moon. So if you are on Earth and you shine a laser light on the surface of the moon, it will hit this reflector and then come back. So using these reflectors, you can actually measure that what is the distance of the Earth and the moon. So these were just one of the many experiments that they had to perform while on the surface of the moon. So, the lunar module, the lunar laser ranging retroreflectors measure the distance from the surface to the moon using lasers, right? So obviously they were not there just to take photographs. There were many experiments that had to be done. And this is another very famous image where the president of that time, President Richard Nixon, had a call with the astronauts while the astronauts were on the moon. So this was such a big achievement that someone sitting on Earth can have a telephone call to the people that are on the moon. So this is a television split screen shot which shows at that time's American President Richard Nixon in the Oval Office speaking with Apollo 11 astronauts on the moon as they walk on the lunar surface. And this call was done on July 20th, 1969. And after all the experiments,
Ignition. Right away, Houston. Regs are good. X-Side. Pitch over.
Roger, you have good thrust.
And here you can see that after all their experiments were done, they spent a lot of time, around 21 hours on the moon, and then they lifted off from the surface. Then Michael Collins caught them while in the orbit, and they started their descent back to the Earth. So the crew prepares to depart from the moon. The lunar descent module behind the Earth is visible above the horizon, and they docked. Both all the three astronauts they docked together, and they started their journey back to the Earth, and they had a safe landing on July 24th, 1969. The three Apollo astronauts successfully splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. So here you can see a crew of the crew and the U.S. Navy underwater demolition team's swimmer awaits pickup at their helicopter from the recovery ship, and they were back on the Earth. So this was such a great journey and such an incredible thing to achieve by humans, that someone went to the moon, walked on the surface, did experiments, and came back on the Earth very safely. So this is something that is to be celebrated, and this is what the International Moon Day is about. And let's see an interview of Neil Armstrong when he came back on Earth.
The surface, as we said, was fine-grained with lots of rocks in it. It took footprints very well, and the footprints stayed in place. The LEM was in good shape and exhibited no damage from the landing or the descent. It's a picture of the ladder with the well-known plaque.
Here, men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind.
We came in peace for all mankind. Right? So this was, the whole world was watching at that time, that humans actually went to the moon, came back, and now they are giving interviews also that what they saw on the moon. Right? So all the experiments were done very successfully. Everything was, the whole mission came out to be a very successful mission, which we are still celebrating. Right? But it soon ended. Right? So as you saw, that the last human mission was done around 53 years ago. More than 50 years, half a century has passed, and humans have not went back to the moon. So why these these Apollo missions ended? Two main reasons. First was budget constraints and changing political priorities, and the main reason was that all the main objectives with different other missions were getting achieved. Right? There were many other objectives, and they were getting achieved with non-human missions also. That's why we ended the Apollo missions, and humans haven't went back to the moon in around 53 years. But is that it? Will humans never go to the moon again? Well, obviously not. Very recently, you must have heard of a very famous another mission that is actually the sister of Apollo, which is called as the Artemis missions. So Artemis missions is another mission from NASA, which is the humanity's return to the moon. So in Greek mythology, Apollo and Artemis, are actually sisters, and the Artemis mission is our next goal to sending humanity back to the moon. So let's what are the main objectives of the Artemis mission? First is to establish a long-term sustainable human presence on the moon. Then to conduct scientific research in the lunar surface, especially on the South Pole region. Then to develop technologies and infrastructure necessary for future crewed missions to other planets like Mars. So moon can act as a perfect ground base when we are planning to go to another planets like Mars. So moon will be our testing ground for that. But when we talk about sending humans back to the moon, and not just to do some experiments and come back, with the Artemis mission, we are talking about living on the moon. But what are the main challenges to live on the moon? There are plenty. Few of them are that, like, no breathable air. Obviously, moon doesn't has any oxygen or any atmosphere. Second is extreme temperatures. Because there is no atmosphere to balance out the temperatures, moon temperatures can go to very hot and very low, and human bodies are obviously not equipped to handle such extreme temperatures. Then obviously harmful radiations. Again, no atmosphere, nothing to protect the surface from the space radiation. And lastly, the sharp lunar dust. The lunar dust is that regolith is a very fine and very sharp, that can go inside the space suits and even damage the electronics there. So these are the challenges. But when have challenges stopped humanity to achieving something? Apollo 11 was the best example of this. That's why we started with the Artemis first mission. There are many Artemis missions that has to happen, but it started from Artemis 1, where Artemis 1 was the first human spacecraft to go towards the surface of the moon. Then, after the successful the mission of Artemis 1, then Artemis 2 was launched. And if someone remembers in recent news only, that it was launched on April 1st, 2026, not very long ago. And these were the four astronauts that went to the moon. They didn't land over there, but this, orbited the moon and then came back on the surface, on the Earth. So this mission actually became the first mission to send a female astronaut to the moon also, right? Then the future of Artemis mission is the Artemis 3 mission, which is already in plan. It is already ongoing, and it is planned to launch in the year 2027. And its main objective will be to conduct a crewed test flight in the low Earth orbit, serving as a critical dress rehearsal for future lunar landings. So this will be, Artemis 3 will be in the orbit of the Earth only, and it will do test the docking and the undocking processes. And astronauts are already selected for this. So these are the four astronauts that are selected for the third Artemis mission, which are Andre Douglas, Luca Randy, and Frank Rubio. So keep an eye on the news. Very recently, Artemis 3, very soon, Artemis 3 mission is about to launch. And that will now obviously not be the end of it. Artemis 3, then there will be Artemis 4, Artemis 5. The final quest is to establish a long presence of humans on the moon. So Artemis mission will not be just about, just fun space exploration. It will be to create a human settlement on the moon. Right? So Artemis is not just about visiting the space, it's about learning how we can live over there. Right? So, yes, this was our great achievement of the Apollo 11 mission, and obviously the future missions that is about to happen. And the future looks very bright for the space exploration. Humans are about to settle on the moon. 50 years ago, someone would have said that. No one would have believed that humans will be living on the moon. But it is a reality now, right? So, yes, this was about the Apollo 11 mission, its achievement, and the celebration. So, yes, thank you everyone for joining for this celebration of the big human achievement. And yes, that was it. So keep keep looking at the news, keep watching the sky, and keep visiting Spacetopia for all the future programs. You can subscribe to our channel and never miss any of the future programs, and also be connected with us in the community channels. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining, and see you all in the next sessions.